Okay, with this channel, I try to cover a wide range of subjects, and I try to also include things that maybe wouldn't be the most talked about subjects, but things I feel should be talked about. So one such thing is the current crisis that is gripping Burundi. In case you don't know, Burundi is a small country in Central Africa. It's a very small country, borders Rwanda, and to the west is the much larger Democratic Republic of Congo, so-called. Um, but basically, Burundi is a very small landlocked country. I believe it's on the coast of Lake Victoria, um, and Tanzania is to the south. Anyway, that gives you a sort of idea of the geography if you're not familiar with this. Of course, if you have heard of Burundi, I'm not patronising you. This is just for people who may not have done so. A little bit of history. Burundi, like Rwanda, has had a very long history of tensions between the Hutu and Tutsi ethnic groups. Now, a lot of this tension came about from the colonialist period because the Europeans, and specifically the Belgians, which had controlled that part of Africa, had specifically drawn a difference between the two groups, which had stoked up years of animosity. If you're interested in this subject, I'd recommend An Ordinary Man, which is a biography of Paul Rusesabagina. He became famous through the film Hotel Rwanda. Now, Rwanda and Burundi, a lot of the issues that affect both countries are quite similar. Um, wouldn't be accurate to say they're the same. No two countries are exactly alike, but both countries have a similar tragic history. Burundi, in some ways, has been less documented than Rwanda because the Rwandan genocide was so awful. But Burundi also has suffered terrible, terrible, terrible suffering for a country of its size. Um, it's only got a population of 10 million, yet it has witnessed two genocides, and a very bloody civil war. The first genocide came in 1972, the second genocide in 1993, and then that was followed by the costly civil war between 93 and 2005. There was again sporadic fighting in 2008. So this year there has been a series of clashes have broken out, and bit of background to this. Basically, the president Pierre Nkurunziza has went for a third term. It's my understanding, I don't know all the details with this, but it's my understanding that goes against the constitution. So understandably, a lot of people are angry about this. Anyway, in the last 48 hours, there's been a supposed coup d'etat by General Godfried Niyombare. And at the moment, Bujumbura seems to be in a state of street fighting. The BBC has spoken to residents. They have said that they can, well, you can actually hear it in the audio, and I'll include it on this video. You can hear gunfire in the streets of Bujumbura. So it looks like Burundi is in a very difficult situation right now. I would say this is the worst crisis it's faced probably since the end of the Civil War. So the question is, what can be done to stop Burundi sliding back into the abyss and a second civil war breaking out? Bear in mind, 300,000 people were killed in that civil war out of a population of 10 million. Um, Goodness knows how many died in the 93 genocide, and about 300,000 died in the 72 genocide. So this is a country that has suffered far more than its share in relation to its size. It's also one of the poorest countries on earth, probably in the top 10 poorest countries in the world. So this is absolutely the last thing that Burundi needs. I've seen some footage, and it's unsettling because the sort of images that I'm seeing of angry crowds sort of running alongside tanks and so on, it does look reminiscent of Rwanda. Now, we shouldn't scaremonger, we shouldn't say that it's going to get to that stage, but right now the situation is very, very tense. And unfortunately, because of the factionalism in a situation like this, neither side's going to back down. The resident that was speaking to the BBC, he had fluent English, which surprised me because I thought Burundi was a French-speaking country. But anyway, he had fluent English, and he said that the government sort of side isn't going to back down because they don't want to hide from the crimes. They don't want to lose face. They know that if they fall, I guess they're concerned about being brought before the International Criminal Court in The Hague. But I'm going to say something which might be controversial, but it's my reflection as an outsider. I do believe there is a consistent problem in a lot of African states whereby you have leaders that their ego come before the welfare of their people. That is to say that they insist on running for a third term even if the people don't want that. This has been consistent with a lot of African conflicts in recent years, and I think a lot of people in the various countries are outraged about this. I would like to particularly hear the opinions of Burundians. Um, this is just my reflection as an outsider. I don't know all the details. I'm not an expert on the situation in Burundi, but my reflection is that both sides need to take responsibility. The leaders on both sides need to take responsibility and ensure that this doesn't get into a worse situation. If you're a Burundian, if you have access to YouTube, then do let me know your thoughts. Maybe you're a Burundian in exile. Whatever the situation might be, let me know your thoughts about this situation. Personally, I really hope this can be resolved before the situation gets worse because, you know, Burundi's already rebuilding itself from the last civil war. The last thing it needs is to be brought back even further with another costly civil war. So, anyone who's watching this, let me know your thoughts. What can be done? Should President Nkurunziza have stepped down before the situation arose? Is it unfair to blame him alone? Should we also blame General Gottfried? You know, what do you think is the where does the blame lie for the current crisis? I do think that there is a problem with a lot of African leaders not knowing when to quit when they should. Now, contrast this with Nigeria, where you had Goodluck Jonathan was defeated and he stepped down. He accepted the result. I'm not saying that he done anything that you know, he done what he had to do. So it's not like let's not overpraise him. But I think the rest of Africa can perhaps learn from Nigeria's example. Um, because far too often you have a situation where there is not a peaceful transfer of power. That's just a fact. So you know, there could be a situation in Africa whereby there is a peaceful transition of power, then maybe some of these countries can start to get outside investment. But outside investors don't want to invest in a country that is politically unstable, and that's a tragedy because it's going to be ordinary citizens that suffer. Um, I do hope the various factions take responsibility and recognise that this is the last thing that Burundi needs. So, let me know your thoughts. Do you think Burundi is heading into the abyss? Do you think we're about to see another civil war or worse? Or can this situation still be averted? Let me know your thoughts.